Welcome in this new edition of Inside the Huddle, brought to you by Danley's Garage Builders, right here on High School Cube News. Brian Chimino with you once again, Mike Clark of the Sun-Times, and Beth Long of Fox Sports and Scout.com. We had a bunch of individual performances in Week 8 we want to talk about. Let's start with Geneva quarterback Daniel Santa Catarina.
Now he scrambles, buys some time, heaves it upfield, and it is caught!
He threw for 381 yards, Mike, 5 touchdowns against Matea Valley.
Geneva's had kind of a quiet, pretty good season. They're 6-2. They lost to Batavia, which was their rival. But looks like they could be headed for a decent postseason run with him. He's had a pretty good year. I mean, this is, I think, his biggest game of the year, but he's had a few other pretty good ones, too. So they're a team to watch, definitely.
Beth, a performance like this can really get someone on the radar.
Absolutely. Performance like that, get your name out there, have people start talking about you. That's what recruiting's all about, and that's how you get started. And especially for a team that hasn't had a prospect in a couple of years, this is what it takes to get your name out there. So it wouldn't surprise me if we start hearing some buzz about him in the near future.
So quietly, Geneva having a nice little season. We usually talk about them more during the season, but they're in the playoff thick of things as well. MVP segment alum Nick Weischer had a huge game.
Touchdown, Nick Weischer.
Beth, in addition to his 90 yards receiving, he actually played defense a little bit, in extended time on defense, 2 interceptions, 1 was returned for a touchdown.
I saw that, and it did not surprise me one bit. The first practice I went out to go see him play, I was just astonished at how good he looked at linebacker. He's been playing outside linebacker, and he's a great tight end. He's, if not the best tight end in the state, one of the best tight ends in the state. He's definitely a game changer and will probably continue to be one when he heads to Notre Dame.
Mike, what do you think about his time on defense?
It's interesting because I remember seeing them in the summer. They were talking about him and some of the other mainstays on the offensive side playing some defense. I don't know that he's done very much of it up until now, but it's, as Beth said, I mean, it's an immediate impact, and it makes Marist a lot better team right now for sure.
And we're kind of looking ahead to Week 9 already. The season just flying by, and you can't script some of these games better. Week 9, championships on the line in the conferences. We can look at DePage Valley, which has been great all year long. Wheaton North hosting Glenbard North.
Yeah, that's going to be a great one. I mean, obviously, 2 of the best offensive players in the state there with Clayton Thorson, the quarterback from Wheaton North, and Justin Jackson, the running back from Glenbard North, who's also a really good defender. That could be an interesting matchup with those 2.
Probably the most interesting thing is that they're both headed to the same school at the next level. They're both headed to Northwestern. So not only is this a battle between, who's going to be a conference championship, this is going to be bragging rights for them probably for the next 4 years for both of those guys. So it's going to be a pretty big game. Should be a very good game. Going to be different, certainly, with the 2 offenses because Thorson is a quarterback and Jackson is a running back. But like you said, you couldn't script this one any better.
All of them, including this one, the Chicago League Blue Championship on the line. Tommy Mister and St. Rita hosting the #1 team, the Loyola Ramblers.
This is one that could be very interesting because if Rita does win, then there's a 3-way tie with Mount Carmel being the 3rd team there too. Tommy Mister, we've seen all year about how dynamic he is. I mean, this is the best defense probably he's faced, although Mount Carmel's defense is pretty good too. They pretty much contained him. It'll be interesting to see how he fares against Loyola's defense in this one.
And way up north in North Suburban Conference, Lake Division, the undefeated Lake Zurich Bears, the #1 team in Class 7A. They're on the road in Lincolnshire facing a Stevenson Patriots team. Lost the first 2 games of the year, haven't lost 6. They've won 6 in a row.
Lake Zurich has got a great defense. Stevenson always seems to get better as the season goes along, though. I mean, if they have some hiccups early, they always seem to get it sorted out. The one thing that they have had to deal with this year is the loss of their best lineman, Zach Novoselsky, but they still have some game changers with Willie Borbin, the quarterback, the receivers, Cameron Green, Matt Morrissey, who's also another 2-way player, another defensive guy, so that could be an interesting game, too.
Certainly, and then one other prospect that's been highly recruited, but we haven't talked about too much, is Colton Moskell, who is actually going to be our MVP segment featured this week. We're headed up to Lake Zurich, so lots of talented players on the field for that matchup as well.
Any other recruiting notes to speak of?
Actually, speaking of Cameron Green and Stevenson, he just received an offer from Purdue. Speaking of Purdue, Purdue landed Oak Park River Forest wide receiver Simi Cobbs. He was our MVP from the previous week. And just a couple official visit notes. Clifton Garrett, Plainfield South's 5-star linebacker, he gained an extra star from Fox Sports and Scout.com. Took a visit to Ole Miss, and Crete 4-star linebacker Niles Morgan took an official visit to Notre Dame over the weekend.
So a lot of recruiting notes, and you can keep checking back here on High School Cube News for the MVP segment with Colton Moskell from the Lake Zurich Bears. And just a programming note here on highschoolcubenews.com. Check back this weekend on the site for a special edition of Inside the Huddle, a playoff preview bracket show with myself and Mike will go over some of the classes and some of the big matchups as the playoffs are released this Saturday night. That'll do it for this edition of Inside the Huddle right here on High School Cube News, brought to you by Danley's Garage Builders. Brian Chimino, Mike Clark, Beth Long. We'll see you guys next week.